So, ladies and gentlemen, let's be very transparent here. I don't like right wing parties in New Brunswick, the core party, People's Alliance, Party KKK, and all that. But they are right wing political for corporate reasons. They basically want right wing because you want to control the government and do what they want to do. But the official right wingers that were trying to gain political power in New Brunswick was, of course, our friendly neighborhood Ku Klux Klan in Canada and across New Brunswick in the 1920s. Now, this podcast will cover a little bit about the basis of the Klan in New Brunswick, mostly through the published reports that have been archived for many, many years. We know of two or three major rallies of the Klan in New Brunswick in the mid 1920s, including the Dalhousie Hamilton region, which North Shore, New Brunswick, heavy Catholic population. That's what the Klan was against. Quebec, a small and beautiful community in southern New Brunswick, and also the regional community of Benton. Both Quebec and Benton are within 15 minutes of my house, and I'm glad to say where I live in Canterbury, New Brunswick. The Klan allegedly they had their main home 18 feet up the road, and being of Jewish descent, fascinating conversation through the years with some of the local historians. Now, a little bit of background on the Klan. The Knights of the Ku Klux Klan is considered a secret fraternal organization. Yeah, secret, yeah, right. Who believes in the supremacy of an Anglo-Saxon and Protestant society. The Klan was originally formed in Tennessee following the American Civil War and was soon outlawed because of the Klan's attitudes and racism toward African Americans. And the Klan, which had declined before the First World War, was reorganized in 1915 in Georgia uh, by people fearing the erosion of rural conservative values, which was kind of what the core party and the People's Alliance are standing for or have stand for. So, I mean, I'm not saying either party is in they're the Klan, but it's nothing original with either one of those parties. Anyway, neither here nor there. Now, like their American counterparts, the Canadian Klansmen despised all things Roman Catholic and feared the purity of the Anglo-Saxon race was being jeopardized by immigrants. It was this outlook that guided their activities in Canada. By 1921, the Klan was active in Montreal, and just 4 years later, Claverns had been organized across Canada. Now, at the time, the big Claverns also included Saskatchewan, of all places, Ryder Pride, where the Klan was at its strongest, and this reorganization took place that resulted in amalgamation of several Klan movements throughout Canada. Now, we all know Saskatchewan was a predominantly, the governments of the 1920s were pro KKK. This was for CCF and Tommy Douglas Rose, or the Democratic Socialist political wing of the NDP. And now, according to Unity Research and various published reports through years, there was a number of claverns in New Brunswick by December 1926. Now, people said might be as high as 25, but on the list there was 17 clans active in the province. Now, Carleton County was the big region for the clan because obviously the majority of the population was white and Anglo-Saxon. The Orangemen were quite strong. Now, they were in Quebec, like I said, Woodstock, East Florenceville, or Florenceville, Bristol now, or the Centerville region, and the great community of Heartland. It had two in Victoria County, Aroostook Junction and Plaster Rock, four in York County, Frankton, my hometown of Canterbury, new hometown, Macadam and Napadogan, and one each in St. Stephen, St. John, Sussex, Chipman, Moncton, Hamilton, and Frankton Junction. Now, according to legend, the last cross burning was at Frankton Junction in the 1940s. I wasn't there to see it. Obviously, I wasn't born, but the clan itself was very active well into the 40s and 50s. And a lot of people said the sympathy for the core party or the right wing conservative version of the progressive conservative party in New Brunswick. I know for a fact there's over 1,000 descendants of clan members throughout York and Carleton County. Not hard to figure out because you don't speak French. And anytime I spoke French in front of them or was on assignment speaking with a French accent. The ears would perk up. Quite interesting. Very, it was almost like a James Woods, racist character the way he reacted to me. And like I said, I really don't care what people think. I am all for freedom of speech, but if you're a core People's Alliance, you know where you come from. You can't really deny it, can you? So, that's the way it goes. Anyway, getting back to that 26, 27 era, a big meeting for the Klan happened in April of 1927 when nine Claverins joined together for an organizational meeting. Now, and it was resolved that the clans of each county elect a county Cleagle to carry on the clan's work. Now, two big clan figures in New Brunswick were the King Cleagle, which was the chief clan officer of the province, G. Davis of Quebec, and also J.S. Lord, an imperial scribe, who worked in the clan's Toronto office when not fulfilling his duties as the provincial MLA for Charlotte County. So the Ku Klux Klan was not only having local elections like municipal, votes, they were electing MLAs or members of assemblies. But see, the problem is with the Klan from the political level, just like the core party and the People's Alliance will fade out. It only lasts so long. You have this kind of racist growth, and it kind of dies off a little bit. Now, two big things that the KKK did was protest against the ruling governments. I think the Liberals and Conservatives. Now, and on August 26, 1929, the KKK marched at Barker's Point near Frankton, and several hundred members from New Brunswick in Maine participated, and were fighting against the establishment of that old bugaboo, bilingual schools in New Brunswick. Uh, I don't think every French speaker in New Brunswick now was Catholic. I know there's many Jehovah's Witness and Pentecost and different stuff. So, so much for that. Now, in 1935, June 20th, the provincial government received numerous hate letters from KKK New Brunswick against Liberal candidate Dysart because he was a Catholic. Now, not really sure why people would protest against someone coming out as Catholic if you support the KKK, because if you know who your enemy is, you can vote against them. So letting him run in the old bugaboo. I'll give you an example. When I needed streetlights for my LSD up home, we allowed a meeting to occur where we needed a quorum of so many voters. The people who didn't want the streetlights were encouraged to attend because it gave us the quorum that we needed. Therefore, when we had the vote, we had the quorum. Majority votes were for the streetlights. It got it done. I think the KKK at the time must have been awful stupid. You would want to know who was Catholic or whatever, because you wouldn't have to vote for him. You'll vote for your other candidate. The logic of the KKK and the Core Party and the People's Alliance, and by the way, Provincial Premier Blaine Higgs is former Core. You can, I'll take that as you will, whatever you want to talk about. But organized racism can only last so long because people can only be angry for so long against something that really cannot be changed. French people can't change English. English people can't change the French. And if you blow against the windmills never are going to knock down. You're just going to keep on spinning. But what's interesting about the KKK in New Brunswick, people were saying, well, the reason why it's big in New Brunswick is that you're by the U.S. border. Not necessarily. Anybody knows that Hamilton is more than 100 miles away from the Maine border, and actually the Quebec border is much more closer. Yet the Klan had very good support in the North Shore. Frankton region again is more towards Nova Scotia. You're about, I think Frankton is about what 90 miles from the border if you go from a direct line to Holden. And the Klan, it was very expensive to be in the Klan. You had to keep the sheets bright. You had to keep your horses for your rallies well together. Cost a lot in gasoline if you're going to burn a cross. Not all the poor people could be part of the Klan. You had a basic, way to present your methods or whatever. Now in 2020, there's many archives online to talk about the Klan in New Brunswick and across Canada. I do know for a fact if you do your rough math, if you had big families in Carleton, York County, in the North Shore, there's got to be 5,000 descendants of the original Klan members across New Brunswick. I think at its height, the Klan had upwards of 750 to 1,000 members across New Brunswick, which seems reasonable, don't you think? Because most communities were normally Protestant. Most Catholic communities in the North Shore really didn't get strength in population until the 1920s and 30s and 40s, post 401, first World War II, the bigger families were the Catholics. What they call the glory era of the Catholic religion, where literally people were having 12 to 20 kids, and there was less and less disease. With the TB generation, a lot of people were dying in childbirth and stuff like that. So again, the infamous photos of Benton, that's the ones you're looking at tonight, where some very, very beautifully dressed horses and some really, really nice looking KKK sheets, nice and clean and bright, just walking along like it's a walk in the park, like a parade. And when those some of those photos reappeared in recent years, people, especially on my feed, said I had faked them. I couldn't fake that. I mean, you can visit the covered bridge in Benton, it's still there tonight if you so inclined, if you want to social distance and walk through a piece of history. One of the smallest covered bridges in the province, downtown Quebec. Still a beautiful area with the churches and the nice rural homes. You could walk on the same street where the KKK walked and dip yourself in a little bit of provincial history. So we cannot deny this happened. This really happened. For all the good in New Brunswick, there are also going to be bad, and you can't turn your eyes towards it because this is what occurred. So again, a little bit of criminal history because the KKK were a criminal terror organization. Not saying they were there for for happiness, joy, joy. True crime works in different ways in New Brunswick. And if anybody wants to make a comment or like and subscribe, well appreciated. I know it's a weird request on a KKK podcast. The reason why I did this podcast, I want to have a living archive for some of my young journalist friends coming up in their 20s and 30s who basically do not know the history, especially the French journalists in my extended friends group, of what the KKK was in New Brunswick. It wasn't just the South, ladies and gentlemen, it was the North, because there was a lot of anti-French, anti-Catholic, and considering there's 7 types of French in New Brunswick, if you really look at it, what's anti-French? I mean, you don't like the Madawaskans, you don't like Grand Sault, you don't have, the American French, you don't like Quebecois, you don't like the Acadian, the Haitians, the French, the Belgique, the Romanians. I mean, come on, what elite French? Like we don't all join together because we don't even speak the same French. Quebec French and Acadian French is different as Scottish and English French. Anyway, so on this COVID Monday, as we're calling it, hopefully the checks will be in your bank account this week to stop you being thrown out on the roads. It's happening, ladies and gentlemen. And maybe in June we'll do a live version of this podcast when everything reopens. But right now, I think New Brunswick is shut down for the month. And what's a better time to celebrate being caught in a house and listening to a podcast about the KKK in New Brunswick? Celebrate our history, the picture province. Have a good day. Bye.